Hey, just cutting in here to give a quick little disclaimer. As the title implies, this is an old video. I think from 2020 or 2021. I found it recently after thinking it was lost to time, so that's pretty cool. My art and opinions have changed since I originally recorded the voiceover, but instead of re-recording the whole thing, I figured it was a good time capsule, so sorry to slow you down. Back to the past, I guess? Oh, Cat Assistant says hi. He wasn't actually even born when I made this video, so that's weird.
Hey, it's voiceover me. Yes, everyone and their mother has done the style challenge before, but in case you haven't heard of it, basically today I'm going to be drawing my character Sabine in a number of different artist styles. So we're starting off with my style, which I think leans a little bit more towards realism than being stylized, and a lot of the styles I chose to try out are manga and anime and cartoons, so as the name implies, this was quite a challenge for me. There's the finished version of my own style. So the first style I'm going to be trying to imitate is Naoko Takeuchi's, and I apologise for butchering her name. I tried. I've recorded this 3 times now. It's just not happening. But she's the creator of Sailor Moon, and like many artists, she was a really big influence of mine growing up, and she's one of the main reasons I started drawing in the first place. My first experience of Sailor Moon was watching the old Sailor Moon anime, and I did consider going with the original 90s style, but I really loved the style of the manga and felt like I wanted to stay true to that instead. I've always thought that this particular artist has a really unique and stylized way of drawing characters, so I was really nervous to see if I could even imitate that. And with all of these styles, I tried really hard to focus on how the artists draw their lines. For example, I would usually really exaggerate the curls and waves in her hair, as you could see in my own style. And while this style is obviously super exaggerated too, I noticed that she draws wavy hair in kind of larger, softer waves, if that makes sense. I also noticed that her line art is quite fine, whereas mine is thick. At least in comparison. So that was quite challenging in itself to just keep to those really thin, fine lines. My understanding is that this artist uses a lot of mixed media. I think she uses watercolors, maybe some markers, pastels, and even some craft pieces like beads. I'm not 100% sure, so do correct me if I'm wrong. All this to say, her colours are often very soft, so even though I had some set swatches for Sabine, I did end up softening the colours a lot to capture her style. Obviously I'm doing this digitally as well, so I can never completely recreate what she was able to do with traditional tools, but overall I think I did a pretty decent job. I mean, if you disagree, you can tell me down below. I won't cry in front of the camera. I ended up referencing Sailor Pluto, Sailor Neptune, and a little bit of Sailor Leadcrow while working on Sabine, because Sabine is supposed to be 21, and a lot of the Sailor Senshi are sort of 14, 15, 16. So these characters were a little bit older. I know there were other characters I could have used as well, but those were the 3 I kind of mainly referenced because they had sort of darker skin tones, or Sailor Pluto and Sailor Leadcrow did, and Sailor Neptune had those beautiful waves, so that was really helpful for referencing. So I'm just finishing this picture up here, as you can see, and then we'll be moving on to our second style. So our second style is Matsuri Hino, the creator of Vampire Knight. I chose this style because I was obsessed with Vampire Knight back in 2010 to sort of 2012. It's funny because I used to draw exclusively in manga style, and then in about 2017 I started to move more towards realism to get away from that, so it felt so strange trying to draw manga again. I'll probably do a whole video on that sometime because it's a topic I think a lot of artists can relate to, but not today. this is a long enough video for today. So, between you and me, this one definitely turned out the worst. At least in my opinion. If you disagree, feel free to comment down below which one you hate. I think the sketch and the line art were okay. And then I just couldn't nail the colouring. I found this style so difficult to imitate. And the thing is, I spent years, when I was a teenager, trying to copy this style. And I still can't do it, so that was kind of frustrating. I think because the line art, again, is so thin, and I want to almost say sketchy, but I only noticed that because I was really focusing on it. I don't know how to describe her style, and I don't want to sound like I'm criticizing it. I'm just salty because I can't imitate it, and I really want to. It's been a dream of mine since I was 16. I'm going on a tangent. So back to the line art, even though I'm colouring now, there is some variation in the line weight, which was nice because there was none in the previous style, at least, that I noticed. So the colouring, I would say, Matsuri Hino's colours are a lot darker than the colours that Takeuchi uses, probably because Matsuri Hino was writing a manga about vampires, and Naoko Takeuchi was writing a manga about magical girls. Now that I'm saying that, that does make sense. So anyway, I kept the colours pretty saturated for this one, and I think that's where I messed up. I did make some attempt to desaturate the hair colour, and I tried pulling a swatch from Juri Kuran's hair, but overall I feel like this one was a bit of a failure. I'm sorry. It was still really fun to revisit this style and look over her art again. I really need to catch up with the latest installments of Vampire Knight that have been released since the series officially ended. But there's a lot. I mean, oh, what's it called? Is it Vampire Knight Memories? I'm sorry, I've gone way off script at this point. I'm gonna try and get back on track. So you'll see in a minute. There we go, the lips. I think I really messed up with the lips. I had a hard time finding a reference of anyone wearing lipstick, so I'm gonna go ahead and blame that. I don't think that's the only thing I did wrong, but it was one of the big issues. And also, again, Matsuri Hino uses Copic markers, I believe, and I'm trying to do this on Procreate. So I'm not gonna let myself off because I'm still frustrated, but I'm gonna say it didn't help my case. Maybe I should have done this portion of the video traditionally, but it would be even more of a mess than it already is, so this is what you've got. I've gone off script again, I'm so sorry. So again, I did use a mixture of characters as references. I think I used Juri Kuran and Rukusuen, and was there anyone else? Maybe Yuki, because Yuki was my favourite character, even though so many other people hated her. I should really reread Vampire Knight and see if I still like Yuki. I hope I do. But in any case, those were the sort of 2/3 main characters that I kind of took inspiration from. And again, Hino uses kind of softer waves in the hair than I would usually. I like to do sort of like big waves and curls, and though she does get a bit crazy with the curls. If you've read Vampire Knight, then you've seen Rido Kuran and you've seen his hair. I can't compete with that. So to actually get back on topic, yeah, I know I've already said it, but I think this one turned out to be my least favourite. Maybe because I just had a lot of pressure on myself to do this one justice, but here is the finished piece. Let me know what you think. And it's time to move on to our third style. So the third style is a staple of this challenge, at least in all of the versions I've watched. It's Tim Burton! I did cheat a little bit with this one. Tim Burton's drawing style is actually pretty different. He has a really cool, sketchy style, and I know that some very brave artists have attempted his personal style in their own challenges, but at least in my opinion, sketching is such an organic and personal process. I just didn't even feel like I could attempt it. It's just, he has such a unique sketching style. So instead, I chose to imitate the style we see in some of Tim Burton's movies. I chose this style not just because it's a staple, but because it's so different from my own style. I draw a lot of witches and vampires and spooky things, but I very rarely make anything actually look really creepy, so I thought this would be really fun. This was, I don't know, maybe surprisingly challenging too. Since I used the movies as references, The Nightmare Before Christmas and The Corpse Bride use stop motion animation rather than 2D animation, so I had to make this look somewhat 3D as well. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Nightmare was a claymation, then The Corpse Bride used puppets with wire armatures and silicone. Again, correct me down below if I'm wrong. One of the big challenges with style was the fact that there was no line art, and I'm so accustomed to using line art. I love line art. Though it did mean I got to skip that part of the process, which was kind of nice because I was getting sick of trying to imitate line art, even though I love it. So I decided to block in the colours first and then go in with the lighting and shading. As for the colours, Tim Burton movies are obviously spooky. I know in the human world and The Corpse Bride, they purposely made the colours really dull to show how boring and miserable the living were, and then made the colours in the underworld really bright and vibrant to show how lively the dead were, which I think is really fun. Anyway, Sabine would sadly, or not, be in the human world, I guess, so I really desaturated the colours, and I think I managed to make her look like she could belong in that world. I mostly referenced Victoria and Emily from The Corpse Bride for this one, so I used Victoria's face and Emily's hair. None of the characters had super wavy, voluminous hair like Sabine, so I decided to keep it pretty limp, as if gravity is really pulling it down. I think it fits in a lot better with this kind of somber setting too. So we are on to the fourth style, which is Klasky Csupo, and specifically As Told by Ginger. So even if you didn't watch As Told by Ginger growing up, you probably recognise the style from shows like The Rugrats or The Wild Thornberrys, two shows I also watched as a kid. I chose this style because As Told by Ginger was probably my favourite Western style show growing up, and I actually rediscovered it a few years back and binge watched it back when all of the episodes were still on YouTube. Oh, I love it so much. The thing is, it still holds up really well too. If you can find it anywhere, I would really recommend watching it if you haven't, because it tackles some really heavy topics and in a really non-pandering way for a kids show. The continuity is fantastic as well. Again, I can't believe they were allowed to make the show, but I'm really glad that they did. Now back to the actual art. It was a really nice change after all of the kind of 3D rendering I was trying to do in the previous style. This was just nice flat cell shading, I almost said shell shading, and and the line art was a nice weight. It wasn't too thin. There wasn't any variation, but it was still very enjoyable, I have to say. It was slightly tricky finding the right kind of characters to reference because Sabine, again, is 21 and most of these characters are teenagers, but I referenced Simone from the last season of As Told by Ginger and Miranda, and I think it worked out pretty well. I like how this one turned out. So the next few styles are going to be some of my favourite artists on social media and on the internet. So this is Dark Matter Nova, one of my absolute favourite Instagram artists. I wanted to throw in some artists I discovered online because some of them have had the biggest impact on me. Whenever I have art block, I always look at Dark Matter Nova's Instagram page for inspiration. If you haven't before, I'd really recommend you check out her work. I'll link to her in the description. So she draws a lot of Toy Story, Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, and Nightmare Before Christmas artwork. I would definitely say her style is influenced by Disney, but it also has her own personal flair that I actually really enjoy. So I picked some references from her Instagram page. She has some beautiful completed illustrations, and I was originally going to do that with this style, but I'm also a really big fan of her more sketchy work with sort of flat light colours and some light blush. But at least in my opinion, sketching is such an organic and personal process, I just didn't even feel like I could attempt it. Okay, I know I said before that I didn't want to try and imitate an artist's kind of sketchy style because it's so organic, but in this particular situation I just had to. I just love it so much. So for references, I used her OC Vera and a really cute drawing of Sally from The Nightmare Before Christmas with wavy hair to try and capture the right kind of look for this. If I had to pick, I think I'd say my favourite thing about her style is the way she draws eyes. They're just so big and expressive, and I really wish I could do that more in my own style. I also really like the cute blushy look she adds to a lot of her pictures. I just think it's adorable. I also love the way she draws poses, but unfortunately I can't really showcase that in a headshot, but I think that's just an even better excuse to go check out her page. I'm just going to keep plugging her until you do it. Have you done it yet? Have you gone to her Instagram? I'm going to stop now because I don't want her to think I'm creepy if she sees this. Sorry, I just really like your art. Anyway, before I creep people out, let's move on to the next style, shall we? So, next up is Rachel Smythe, and she is the creator of the webtoon Lore Olympus. I discovered Lore Olympus sometime last year, and I basically binged the whole thing in one evening. Lore Olympus is a comic based on Greek mythology, with a focus on Hades and Persephone in particular, though it features a lot of the other Greek gods and goddesses as well. Anyway, back to the art. This was another quite tricky style for me. It's quite organic. Quite organic. Apparently that's my favourite word today. The line work isn't maybe as structured as it is in some of the other styles I've attempted, and her work flows so beautifully. I would say my own style is very rigid, which that's not a good thing, to be honest, so I was so nervous about this style. It's just so different from what I'm used to. The characters in Lore Olympus they all have their own kind of monochromatic colour scheme as well. So Hades is blue, Persephone is pink, Artemis and Apollo are purple, and so on. And that really makes the characters pop against one another and against certain backgrounds, and I think I read that was the artist's intention. I'm also such a fan of how expressive the artist makes her characters. That is something I am horrible at, so it was really fun to try and work on that by imitating another artist's style. So Persephone has freckles, which was very handy because a lot of these styles, I'm not criticising, but there were no freckle references, so this was just really lovely. More freckle representation. So the mortals in this comic, I believe, have a more sort of natural earthy skin tone, which I tried to apply to Sabine. I know it looks quite red, so maybe I didn't quite manage that, but I did my best. So I hopefully managed to make her look like she'd belong in this world. I'm not sure if I nailed this one, to be honest, but I do really like how this turned out, and I think I learned a lot from imitating this style. Let me know what you think. So, moving on to our penultimate style, and that is Hayley Newsome, more well known as Lavender Town here on YouTube. This is another style I just had to attempt. I've been a fan of Lavender Town since maybe 2016 or 2017. She was actually one of my biggest inspirations for starting this YouTube channel. I've been rewatching my old videos, and they're bad. Okay, so I haven't done her justice there, but I'm working on it. If you haven't seen her videos, she does some really amazing character designs, turning things like snacks, teas, and apps into cute girls and guys. She also has this great series called Creepy Drawster, where she illustrates creepypastas while reading them. And the last series I'll mention is her Do This Not That series, which has some really fantastic tutorials, and I've learned a lot from her, so again, you should go check her out. I believe her style is inspired a lot by Jonah Vasquez, who created Invader Zim, and I just love, again, how expressive and quirky her style is. I mostly reference screenshots from her video turning the constitutions into cute girls, and I'll link that down below. She also does this really cool thing where she puts a unique shape into one or both eyes of the character that kind of reflects something about their personality or profession or interests. Speen is actually the ringmaster of a circus, so I did try to put a little circus tent into one of her eyes. I also really, really love the shape of the eyes in general. I just think it adds a lot of expression. I think overall Lavender Town has a really expressive and kind of more Western cartoon style, whereas, I mean, I don't really know what my style is. I did kind of say that at the beginning, but my style really isn't stylized at all or very little. So again, this was a real challenge for me, but it was also really, really fun. And I think, as I basically said with all of these, I've learned so much just from trying all of these different styles, and I'll probably incorporate some of the things I've learned into my own artwork going forward. I'm just going to casually steal elements of other artists' styles. I'm not really stealing, please don't get mad. Let's move on before you call the art police on me. So, we're moving on to our final style, which is Tetsuya Nomura, and he designed the characters for the Final Fantasy games, and something I'm more familiar with, the Kingdom Hearts games. Kingdom Hearts was another huge influence on me during my teenage years when I was kind of first getting serious about drawing. I used to try and imitate Nomura's style. Not well. I would say that Kingdom Hearts is actually what got me into drawing male characters, because I only ever used to draw girls, and I still have kind of a bad habit of not drawing guys enough, but Kingdom Hearts did help me with that problem, at least a little bit. This style was difficult. I'm not sure specifically why, but it did take me a few tries to get it to look even remotely like the reference I was using. This was another style that had some really cool, sketchy line art and shading. After working on all of these, I'm really loving that look, and I'm definitely gonna incorporate something like that into my own art going forward. I think it was mostly the colouring that I struggled with. I'm not sure if Nomura uses watercolours or markers, but he does the lighting and shading in hair a lot differently than I would, and I noticed he throws in some kind of brighter colours in with the highlights. So I tried to use some of the pink from the dress Sabina's wearing, or red, it's kind of more of a red really, but I kind of tried to use that and added some yellow as well. I did forget to add her freckles, so I went and did that after. You'll see it in the final piece. I'm sorry I didn't quite capture it in the recording. I guessed he might do a smattering of freckles rather than drawing them individually, so I just used one of the brushes that comes with Procreate to do that. I couldn't actually find any references of characters with freckles, so that was just my best guess, to be honest. So as I'm wrapping up this final style, I just want to take a second to acknowledge all of the places where the video kind of skipped out some parts of the process. This is my first time recording with Procreate, and on my iPad, so I apologise for that. I know I said there were going to be some changes, but Rome wasn't built in a day, and I'm trying. So don't be too hard on me, please. Hopefully the next time I try and record one of these videos, I'll kind of have a better idea of what I'm doing with the recording process. So, I mean, I'm not making any promises, but I'm gonna try. We're triers here on this channel. And with that said, the challenge is complete. This was a lot of fun, so let me know how you think I did, or if there are any styles that you'd like to see me tackle in future. I'd definitely be up for doing this again sometime, maybe not right away. It was a very long video, and I congratulate you if you got to the end. So, thank you for watching. If you want to like and subscribe, because I believe that's the thing I'm supposed to say, then that would be lovely. But if you don't want to, then don't. That's fine too. Bye!